Hello, welcome everyone. We had intended to do this live, but we had some technical difficulties, so we appreciate your patience. We're still going to go through these three projects. It's one design, 3 ways, and we will send this video to you so you can still find out exactly how to do everything. And if you do have questions, just put them in the YouTube comments and I will come back and check and respond to those. So we have I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Kelly Wayment, and I had chose one of the designs from the July Club Silhouette special designs of the month, and I chose to take the one design and show 3 different ways. So if you don't have those designs, you're still going to learn some things both in the software, how to set things up, and also with these different materials. So don't worry if you don't have the designs. You're going to be able to learn stuff and use it for any designs that you might choose. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll show you really quickly what we're going to do. First, we're going to use some tattoo paper, and this is using sunglasses and flip-flops. We are also going to make a heat foiled card, and these all have a summer theme, and then we're going to use some heat transfer vinyl to make a tote bag. So we'll start with the tattoo paper. So when you have tattoo paper, you can use either the cutting mat or the ES mat. I'm going to use the cutting mat today. So tattoo paper comes in 2 parts. There is a kind of a glossy cardstock sheet, and you're going to print on the glossy side when it comes to that. And then there's this other sheet that's actually going to be applying the adhesive that turns it into a temporary tattoo after you have printed. So we'll get into that when it comes time, but that's the tattoo paper. The only other thing you need with tattoo paper is an inkjet printer. And then of course we're just going to work in the Silhouette Studio software. Alright, so here I am in Silhouette Studio. I'm using Silhouette Studio version 5. I'm going to go to the design page where we do all the magic and open the design. So in my library, I'm just going to do, this one's called Sunglasses and Flip-Flops. So I'm going to start typing sunglasses and I'll find it. So there it is, Sunglasses and Flip-Flops. Double click to open. And then we want to make sure these things are grouped. So looks like the sunglasses are grouped together, and then we want to group the flip-flops together. So just select those and choose group. You can also choose Control or Command G. And then we'll check our page setup for our machine and our mat and our media size. So I'm going to use the Cameo 5. I'm going to use the 12 by 12 inch cutting mat, and my media size I'm going to switch to letter because the tattoo paper is letter size. So I want to make these actually tattoo size. So I want to shrink these. I've selected the sunglasses. I'm going to shrink it anywhere between 1.5 to 2 inches is probably pretty good for 1.5 to 2.5 inches. It's pretty good for a tattoo size for kids or friends or whatever. So I'll make them both, yeah, about 1.5 inches. And then I want to make some copies. So I can just select those 2, and I'm going to do Control, or you could use Command if you're using a Mac, and your arrow key. And just every time you tab, you've got your Control or Command key, and you hit your arrow key on your keyboard. That's going to make a copy. And then what you can do if you're feeling like you want some variation in these designs is you can recolor these. This doesn't work for every design, but it does work for these. So let me zoom in a little bit. And what I'm going to do is ungroup, well, I'll ungroup all but one. We'll leave the original color the same. So I'm going to ungroup up at the top with those selected, and ungroup again. I want to make sure I really have those things that I can recolor. So we're going to open our fill style window, and we can just start selecting. Hold your shift key to select multiple objects, and you can choose some different colors. So let's make the lenses black, and that's good enough for that. This one we can make the flip-flop bases. Hold shift while clicking. Let's make it a green, and we can change the straps to maybe an orange. And once you've got it the way you want, you can regroup that. And so you could just go through and actually recolor all those pieces the way you want. And I'm not going to spend all that time here, but I am going to regroup these so I can show you the next part. All right, so when I'm doing a tattoo, and often when I'm doing a sticker, I am going to create an offset. So to create an offset, let's spread these all apart, because when you do an offset, any parts of the offset that are touching will fuse together. So we just want to make sure these are spread apart. Okay, we'll select all of these, open the offset panel, and I'm going to do an offset and a distance of 0.10 inches. And you can use the arrow keys, or you can actually type that in. Once it's the amount that you want, 0.1, then you can click apply. And then you can group these again with their offsets. And I'm using a shortcut key, Control G or Command G if you're using a Mac. Okay, so now I can move these around with their offsets. Okay, and so now we're ready to turn on our registration marks. I'm going to go back to full screen and find the print and cut panel and click enable registration marks. I do also want to make sure that my cut border is showing. So let me go back to the page setup panel and go to the second tab with grid settings, and I want to check the box for show cut border. That line, whenever you're doing print and cut, well, whenever you're doing any cuts, you need to make sure you're staying within the line. And so I would reposition all of these, and for some reason they're not all moving. I would just want to make sure that they are all within the cut border and not touching the crosshatch areas. All right, those aren't moving for me, but that's okay. I'm actually going to switch to another page. Let's go look at the send panel. I usually go to the send panel when I'm doing a print and cut before I actually print things, because once I print, I don't want to change anything. So what I want to do is I don't want to cut all these lines, which is what they're doing at the moment. I only want to cut the outline. So I'm going to select all of those pieces and choose Tool 1, use Outline of Selection. Now if you're familiar with the older versions of Silhouette Studio, it used to be called Cut Edge, but now we're just saying Tool 1, use Outline of Selection. When I click that, now it's only got the bold red along the outline, and will not cut all those inner pieces. And then I want to set my material. You can go through, make sure you're connected to your machine. You can do that in guided, and then in standard once you're connected. We're going to choose our material as temporary tattoo paper, printable, and then I'm going to double check my settings. I want my blade depth at 4. My force I'm going to put up to 30, just for my blade, and speed I can leave at 3. Now if you leave your force at 25, the default, then I do suggest, unless your blade is really sharp, you might need 2 passes. So we're going to try this out, and you can also always do a test cut. Alright, so now I'm going to switch to my saved document because I have already printed this and I need it to match exactly what I have printed. Okay, so when you're ready to print, you can either do it from the send panel or from your design page. You just click send to printer. And then when you click print, you can choose your printer, you can choose where your paper is going from, like if you're using a rear feed tray, and then you're just going to make sure that you are going to print on the glossy side of the cardstock. So now we're going to go ahead and you can print, but I've already got mine, so we'll go ahead and I'll show you the rest on how I'll show you how to apply the adhesive. Alright, so here is my printout. You can see I have printed on the glossy side of that white cardstock piece in the package, and then I just need to apply the adhesive sheet. So there is, on your adhesive sheet, there's a blue backing and there's a thin strip at the top and then the rest of the strip. What I do is I will line up just the bottom and sides of the whole page, and then I will, with the skinny strip on top, and then I'll pull off just the skinny strip at the top. And so now I've got my tattoo paper is attached at the top. So when I pull this rest of the adhesive away, just carefully, I'm going to move from the top and just kind of pull it smoothly down. And that usually works pretty well to avoid any bubbles. And then I will use my scraper tool just to make sure that that adhesive is applied really well to the printed sheet. Rub your fingers. So we're just making sure that that clear adhesive sheet is stuck really well to our cardstock piece. And now it's ready to cut. So I have my printout with the adhesive sheet added to it, and I am just going to put that on my cutting mat, upper left corner, always the same way that you see it in the software. And we'll get that loaded. Okay, and now in my software, it knows that it's loaded. Make sure my settings are right. And we will send that. So now the machine is just reading the registration marks to to make sure it knows where the cut lines are instead of just guessing. If you don't have registration marks, then it thinks it knows where they are, where the cut lines are, and it doesn't matter if it's not printed. But when it's printed, you want the registration marks. All right, so that's all done. I'm just gonna give a little check to see if that cut all the way through, and it looks like it did. So I'll unload it. And now you have all these tattoos. So I already have a few of these cut out. Let me just show you really quickly. To apply tattoo paper or tattoo to your skin, you're just going to peel away the clear backing. And then you can just stick it to your skin, get it wet. And then when you feel like that's wet, you can kind of give it a little peek, make sure it's going to stick. And there I've got my little fun summer temporary tattoo. So that is our first project. We'll move on to our next one. For our next project, we're going to, using the same design or part of the same design, we're going to make some heat foiled summer cards. This one will be a happy birthday card, and we're just going to use the flip-flops. So let's go back into the software. All right, so here we are again in the software, and again we're going to open that same sunglasses and flip-flops design. And this time we're going to delete the sunglasses. You could, of course, if you want, use the sunglasses. I'm just going to use the flip-flops. These I'm going to group them again. This will always depend on your design itself. But for this one it works well. And then again back to the page setup. This time I'm using the Cameo 5 machine. I am going to use the ES mat, the cutting mat. So electrostatic mat 12-inch, since I'm using the Cameo 5. You can, of course, use this with the Portrait 4. And you don't have to use the electrostatic mat if you don't have it. You can use a regular cutting mat for this. All right, then my media size is going to be letter. And I want to make sure my cut border is showing up again. So second tab for grid settings and show cut border. There we go. Now I can see that that's letter size paper. I am going to resize these flip-flops to 1 inch wide. So you can drag the corner handle, or you can go up here in your width and height up in the quick access toolbar, as long as that's selected. I want to make sure the aspect is locked and change my width to 1 inch. And don't worry about taking notes. We will have a handout that has all of these steps for you. We're going to change the fill color. Since I'm going to foil this, I am not worried about color in it. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. I'm not worried about color, so I'm going to change the fill color to a transparent and I'm actually going to change my line color to black so I know it's something different than just cutting it. Then my drawing tool, I'm going to use the drawing tool over here on the left, just a rectangle, and I'm going to draw a card front. So I want it to be 3.75 inches wide and 5 inches high. So zoom out just a little bit. I can again plug those directly into my quick access toolbar, the scale. So this time I want to unlock the aspect ratio so I can tell it exactly 3.75 inches wide and 5 inches high. And then I'm going to duplicate these flip-flops to create a stack of 6. So again, you can just use your control or your command key, hold that button down while you tap your down arrow. 2, 3. Okay, I want a total of 6 flip-flops. So there we go, I've got a stack of 6 flip-flops. I want to select the first. This is a little bit of design stuff here, just making it fun to kind of show you what you can do in the software to change up your design. You could actually leave all these flip-flops this way and maybe just space them out. I'm just going to make it a little more interesting. So I'm holding my shift key to select the first, third, and 5th flip-flops, and I'm going to flip those horizontally. So right click, flip horizontally. And then I'm going to select the 2nd, 4th, and 6th flip-flops, and I'm going to rotate those 180 degrees. So I'm actually going to go over to my transform panel and the rotate tab and rotate by 180 degrees, just to give it a little interest. All right. Now I want the top and the bottom pairs to be within about a 1/4 inch of this corner edge of that card front that we're going to be cutting out. So don't want it to be too close. All right, and then once you have those, we are going to be selecting the entire stack, and we're going to align these. So we're going to choose the align on the quick access toolbar and align left, and then we're going to use also on the quick access toolbar the space vertical option. Now we're going to group these matching same directions, so 1st, 3rd, 5th, and group. Then 2nd, 4th, and 6th, and group. And now I want to nudge some of these over. You could leave them where they are if you like the look. I'm going to go back to full screen, the fit to the window, and while I have that lower group selected, I'm going to use my shift and my arrow key, and that's actually going to move. Maybe I deselect and reselect. Shift and arrow key twice, and that looks good. So you're just kind of playing around to make it look like a fun pattern. And then we're going to add a little text tool right here on the left. And we're going to type happy birthday on 2 lines. And I'm going to change this font to Stars and Stripes, so I can do that either in the text style panel, or I can just do it up here in the quick access toolbar. Stars and Stripes, it finds it for me. I'll hit enter. You have to already have it loaded for that to work, of course. And then I want it to be a center aligned, and I want my font size to be 20 point. So that makes it small enough to fit here. I'm also going to change the line color to black right here, just so it matches my flip-flops. And what I'm trying to do right here is just kind of tuck this in, but I don't want, and you can use your arrow keys to nudge, I don't want the black part to be wider than 3 inches. We want it to be about 2.5 inches. 2.4 is good. The reason is I have a 3-inch wide strip of foil, and I just want to make sure that I can fit that all under the 3-inch wide strip of foil. So I have those in the position I want, so I'm just going to say group selected shapes. And then I'm going to select both my rectangle and the foil design, and I'm going to move it to the lower part of my page. When I'm doing foil, a cut and foil project, I like to put it at the lower part of my page so I'm not dealing with the rollers in the way while I'm trying to tape down the foil. So if you can, it's nice to be able to do it in the lower part of the page. And then just make sure that these are within the cut lines, within the cut border. All right, so now I'll go to my send panel. Make sure I've got my machine connected, which I still do from the previous project, and I need to turn on the heat pen. I actually need to install the heat pen and turn it on. So we are going to use the ES mat, the electrostatic mat. We'll move some of that out of the way. I'm just connecting the port to the electronics down below. And so I've pushed that in to make both of these corners pop up, and then I want to make sure that my rollers are rolling in this channel. It will not load and it will not cut well if your rollers are over on the mat itself. They need to be in these channels, which they are. It's the same for a 12-inch cutting mat. And then I need to get my heat pan and turn it on because it takes 3 minutes to heat. So I'm just going to use the fine tip, connect it there in carriage 2, and lock it in place. And then in my software, I'm going to be turning that on. It says my heat pen is detected, and I'm going to say click to turn on the heat pen. So that will get it heating. I'm going to be foiling on the lighter color of cardstock. Oh, I guess I didn't go over all the tools, the things we needed for this project, but we're using heat foil, heat pens, and 2 colors of cardstock. So I'm choosing the lighter color of cardstock, and we're going to be cutting first. So I'll go back into the software. I can turn that the electrostatic mat on now to get that stuck on there, but we're going to go back into the software. If you do not have a so let me back up just a second. Let's get this set up for the 2 tools we're going to use. So right now everything is showing in bold red, so it's planning on cutting everything with tool 1 with our auto blade. We don't want that. We want to cut only the outer rectangle with the auto blade, and we want to foil the other pattern design that we made. So basically we're going to leave the red line with tool 1, use all selected lines, but we'll select the foiled part and we're going to change it to tool 2, use all selected lines. So you can see there's now 2 bold colors. The red is going to be cutting with tool 1, and the blue is going to be cutting or foiling with tool 2. And in fact, we're not actually going to do those both at the same time, so we're going to ignore the blue lines first. So they're at the very bottom. If you want to turn off cut lines, you just select it and say ignore selected lines. Now, if for me, I have a heat foil setting on my plain cardstock. And if you are not seeing that, what you need to do is go over to More and make sure that you have, let's see, let's go with a yeah, so you would do cardstock plain. I think to show you this setting up a new material, I need to actually click the plus button, but you could select your cardstock plain. So up here, I'm going to say heat foil cardstock. I'm going to rename that. Hit enter, and then I'm setting this up for the Cameo 5. And then I'm going to say it's for tool holder 2. And I can leave it at cardstock for this material setting. So if I make sure that I have tool holder 2 selected. If there's no foil option down here yet, then we need to add a foil action. So click the plus, add foil action. Now we've got our foil tab, make sure that's selected. The force, when I'm using the ES mat, I like it 10 to 12 for my fine tip. Speed, I kind of slow it down 3 or 4 for foiling. Single pass, don't worry about acceleration. Don't worry about any of these other ones. So it's a force of 10 and a speed of 4. And once I have those there, click save. And then I can click the X at the top. And so now, if you follow those steps, now you have a setting that you can, a material where you can use heat foil. So that should show up in my user defined, and it'll go to the bottom of the list. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, here it is, where I just created heat foil cardstock. So I'm going to choose that, and it's got my force of 10 and my speed of 4 and my passes at 1, and of course blade depth doesn't apply because it doesn't have adjustment for depth. All right, and it looks like we are heated up, so we can go back to tool holder 1. We'll turn those lines back on when we're ready, but right now we don't want any blue to show, we only want the red to show. So we're looking at tool holder 1, and I'm actually going to choose pattern paper medium and leave the default settings: force 30, speed 5, 1 pass, blade depth 3, and I can load that and send it. Okay, so my ES mat is on. My cardstock is on there, so I'm just going to push from behind and press the load button. And that's in there. And so it's only going to do my tool 1 when I press send. It's just going to do the red cut lines. All right, I'm not going to unload this. I want it to stay in exactly the same position, and I am going to choose a foil to add. Now I have this little rectangle where I have an idea from how I set it up in the software. I know where my design is going to be. So I'm going to place the foil. So I'm going to place the foil on there to make sure it completely covers the design, so I can feel there underneath there where my borders are. And so I'm just gonna, oops, that's okay. It's not gonna foil that low. So the electrostatic mat kind of holds it in place a little bit, and then we'll make sure we have it taped down really well. So the goal with the foil is to make sure that there's little bubbles as possible. So I'll usually use the tape to kind of grab it and pull it tight. And you want to make sure that your tape is not covering anywhere where that design is going to be foiled. So I think we're ready to go back into the send panel. I'm going to be switching it to the foil and then we'll send it. All right, so in the software now, I want to turn off that red cut line that I just did. So select it and say ignore selected lines. And then I want to select the foil design and say Tool 2, use all selected lines. And that's where the foil is going to happen. Then over here, I want to make sure I'm in Tool Holder 2. My heat pen is ready. It detected it. My force is 10, my speed is 4. And so now that is ready. I haven't unloaded the mat, so it's just ready to go again. So I'll click send. All right, so that is all done with the foil. We can unload that. And it looks like maybe didn't cut totally through. I could have adjusted my cut settings a little bit more, but basically we're going to be taking the foil off. And it leaves our card front. And if you do get rough edges, you can just trim that with this pair of scissors. But what you're going to apply this to is a regular piece of letter size cardstock, just folded, or cut in half and then folded in half. So you would just take your folded cardstock and use some adhesive on the back of that sheet and add it to your card front. And since you've got both silver and gold, you can make these fun cards. You can, instead of saying happy birthday, you could put somebody's name, but that should give you some fun ideas of how you can just use a design to add heat foil and make an easy summer card. All right, so for our third project, using the same design again, but again, I think the flip-flops are cute, so I'm using the flip-flops again. You could totally do this with the sunglasses. We're using just a simple cotton tote bag. We're using 2 colors of heat transfer, and for this I chose a smooth green and a glitter teal, turquoise, aqua. I'm not quite sure what color that is. So 2 colors of heat transfer, and you could do both smooth heat transfer, that would be fine. So you just need a tote bag, 2 colors of heat transfer. You need a protective sheet. This is actually kind of like parchment paper. So you can use parchment paper or Teflon sheet. And then you need some kind of heating iron to press your design onto it. It's an iron-on. So you could use a household iron. If you're using an iron, just use a cotton setting and make sure it's set for no steam. But I'm going to be using the Silhouette Crochet. And you guys are the first to hear that it is coming soon. So we hope by mid-August, early August, that it will be available to purchase. So this is a Silhouette Crochet, and it's just super nice and portable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this plugged in and start heating it up. I will go ahead and take out the petite, crochet petite, just in case I need it, from the bottom. But I'll just plug in the cord. Make sure I get it in the right direction. Okay, we'll get that plugged in. All right, and this, I'm actually, because I'm using the two colors, we're doing it kind of in two stages. So lift it up to turn it on, and I'm just going to dial it to a medium high. The glitter heat transfer needs a little bit more heat than the smooth heat transfer, so I'm actually just turning the dial so it's pointing directly to the right. So that's between medium and high, and hopefully that'll work out for us. So we'll get that heating up, and then we will go into the software and I'll show you how to turn this design into a heat transfer design. All right, so here we are back in Silhouette Studio, and I am going to grab that design again on a clean document. Open that design, delete the sunglasses, and the flip-flops, I'm going to resize them so they fit better on my tote bag. So I've measured it, plus I know I've got the heat press itself. I want to keep my design within 6 inches, six and a half inches. Anyway, I'm going to make my height 6 inches. So they're 6.042 inches by resizing on just the corner handle. That will make sure, and then the width I know is still under the width for the heat plate on the crochet. Then I'm going to ungroup all of this. So select it all, click ungroup, and then I'm going to select click off to the side to deselect, and I want to select just the bases of the flip-flop. So I'm going to click one to select, and then hold shift and click the other so they're both selected, and group those. And that's okay that popped up. So what that did is when I grouped this, it brought this forward. And so it looks like my other strap disappeared. That's okay, it's still there. So I'm going to click, while I still have the bases selected, I'm going to click up here on the quick access toolbar, send to back. And so now the straps are back in front. So now I want to select just the flip-flop straps. So click and then shift and click to select both the straps. And again, I'm going to group those. And now I want, whenever you're using heat transfer, you want to mirror your design. Now this one doesn't have any text, so you might be fine with it being the other direction when you actually apply it. But if you have any text or the orientation matters, you want to mirror your design. So select everything and do right click and flip horizontally. That's a quick way to mirror your design. Now we want to cut only one color at a time. So I'm going to start with my green heat transfer. And so those are for the bases. So I can just move the part I'm not going to cut off to the side over here. And I am actually going to use the cutting mat on this. I could cut it directly with just a roll, but I've already pre-cut my vinyl, my heat transfer vinyl. And so I'm going to set got my machine is Cameo 5, my cutting mat is 12 by 12, my media size is custom. I want this to be 9 inches wide and 6.5 inches high. That is what I've already trimmed my heat transfer vinyl to. And so when I put that on my cutting mat, I know exactly where it's going to cut. Now let's go over to the send panel. My material, I'm going to look on tool holder 1, and my material I want to be smooth heat transfer, so we're looking for heat transfer smooth, and the defaults should work. So blade depth 2, force 4, and speed 8. And then you could do a test cut if you need to. If you ever need to do a test cut, you can say generate test shape, and you can move this around. And when you want to test just the shape, you just say send test. I'm going to skip that for now, but I suggest you do that whenever you're doing a new material. And so let's go ahead and get this first color cut. All right, so I've already got my vinyl, my green, cut in that 9 inches wide by 6.5 inches high. So now I just need to load it on my mat. And when you are cutting heat transfer, you are cutting the back side of it. This particular color of heat transfer has a white backing. Sometimes they're the same color, but the glossy side is your carrier sheet. Your glossy side goes down. Okay, and then I'll just load that. And it's ready, so I'm just going to click send. I'm just going to check that real quick and make sure that that actually cut through. Yep, looks good. So I can unload that. We'll take that off. And load our color for the flip-flops. Again, the dull side goes up. The glossy side goes down against the mat. And this one is 6.5 inches wide by 4 inches high. So I'll make note of that when I go back into the software for the other. Okay, so back into the software. I'm going to go back to the design page. I'm going to move the piece we cut off to the side so it won't cut, and I'm going to change my custom media size to 6.5 inches wide and 4 inches high, and then move my straps onto there. And with that page set up exactly the same as my media, I can actually select that the straps and say center to page. And that's going to put an even border all the way around. So that's ready. I can go to my send panel, and I do want to change. So if you were cutting another color of smooth heat transfer, you could leave those settings the same. I'm going to do glitter heat transfer. So I'll do heat transfer glitter. And that wants a blade 3, a force 33, and a speed 5. And I did test this last night, so it should be okay. And so now, again, we can go ahead and send that. And the heat transfer always reminds you, that you can't, that it should be mirrored. Since we already mirrored it, we can say send as is. All right, so that's done. Let me just double check and make sure it cut through. Find the area. Yep, it looks like that cut, so we can unload that. And I'm actually done with this machine. Take that off the mat. And again, you can cut heat transfer directly in the machine without the cutting mat, but since I was using these smaller pieces that were pre-cut, I just find it easier to use the cutting mat. Okay, so now we'll get our tote bag out. Now if you have wrinkles in your tote bag, you might want to pre-press it. You can also kind of warm it up a little, your surface that you're going to be applying that to. It also, if you pre-press, it also can remove any moisture that's in it. So I'm just going to give it about 3 to 5 seconds of a pre-press. Let's move this over here. Okay, so I've done a little bit of a pre-press, and let's get this design applied. This is a pretty simple shape, so I just need to weed away the part that we don't want to apply. I actually really like weeding heat press material, heat transfer material. The backing, the carrier sheet that is on there is sticky, and so it holds the material in place until you press it. Let's see if I can get these little extra pieces weeded. I always do that. Make sure you're looking at the right lines. You don't want little cuts out of there. I think that'll actually be covered by the other color though, so it'll be okay. Okay, so we've weeded away the parts that we don't want, and we may as well weed the second color while we're here. And the only thing better than weeding regular heat transfer is weeding glitter heat transfer. I love the glitter heat transfer. All right, so now we're just going to apply our first. Just kind of center it there on our bag. And I'm going to use this protective sheet to cover that up. And I can kind of feel around and see where the heat plate is. I want to make sure that the whole design is under the heat plate, the platen. Okay, and then I'll protect it. And since I'm doing two colors, I don't want to do the whole time on one color and then the whole time on the second color. I'm just going to press it long enough to get it to stick on there. So about 5 seconds will probably be good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, we'll see if that was hot enough. This will come up and stay in place. So this would not be long enough for you to now go and wash this bag, but it is enough to leave it in place while we put the other color. So now, let me put this down where I can see it. So now we're just kind of using this as a guide. We know where the flip-flops should go based on those little straps there. Okay, so again, we're not going to press this the whole time. And make sure I've got my straps out from underneath so there's no lumps where they shouldn't be. It should be totally flat under there. Okay, again, make sure that I'm feeling where the edges are, so make sure my whole design is on there. And again, we're just going to try for 5 seconds. And it's especially important once you have this layer exposed, you absolutely need to make sure it is covered and protected so the hot plate does not melt it. Okay, so we'll do about 5 seconds again. I'm just giving a little bit of pressure. And we'll see if that was enough to make those stick there. Looks like it. Okay, I'm going slowly because it still isn't fully pressed. And it leaves a little bit of a ghosting shape that hopefully will come out when we press it for the full time of the edge. That's why I only tack it down so it doesn't leave that ghost shape there the whole time. So now we'll replace this, and this time we'll give it, maybe 15 seconds. And this time I can lock it. So 1, 2, 3. All right, so that's been about 15 seconds. So we can take off our little protective sheet, and now that should be on there. If you feel like it isn't completely on there, you can press again. If you leave it for the full 45 seconds, since we've already pressed a little bit earlier, that might be a little too long. You don't want your vinyl to melt, but you're just finding that balance of pressing it on there long enough that it stays when you have to wash it or clean it, but not so long that it, with multiple presses, gets bubbly and too hot. But that is that design a third way, and with the crochet heat press. So hopefully you've had fun with this class. You've learned how to set up different designs in the software, that you can take just one design and make multiple projects out of it, and learn a little bit about heat transfer and tattoo paper and the heat foil, all some of my favorite things. So thanks for joining me today, and we will see you next month on August 14th.